Hello again. So, tonight, Monday, and it is chat number 10 of What Does Nature Mean to You? I've got guests lined up almost every night this week. There's a couple of nights I'm taking off, but I think that's allowed. Tonight, I will be joined by a lady called Rachel Bass, who is a celebrant, a ceremonialist, and a priestess. So she runs, guides, different ceremonies, but she'll explain that more than I will. So just while we're waiting for Rachel to join the chat so she can come and tell us what nature means to her, let me just let you know who else we've got for the rest of the week. So tomorrow we've got my friend and study mate Chika from Learnomic, who teaches mindfulness to children and businesses in Nigeria. And then Wednesday night we've got John Doyle, who is a naturalist and therapist. And then later on in the week we've got some more wonderful outdoorsy people to join. But I'm smiling because I can see Rachel is here. So let me just see through the chat. Okay, so hopefully that will be working. And there we go. Hello, Rachel.
Hi. Hi, Ruth.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for joining me. I know we haven't actually really spoken that much, so I'm really excited to meet you here in front of everyone else.
Here I am.
I realised actually I've just forgotten to put in my headphones, so I'm going to do that because it just makes it that little bit better. I do that. Okay, so Rachel, I tried to introduce you at the very beginning of this, but I think that you will do a better job than I. So I wonder if you can tell people who you are and what you do.
Oh, well, my name's Rachel Bass. I'm a celebrant in my professional life, which means I take funerals, baby naming days, vow renewals, wedding celebrations, and all of those things. I can also run death cafes and workshops and anything and everything. And then personally, I'm also a priestess of the goddess. I trained with Glastonbury Goddess Temple for 3 years. And and that is my faith, and it's nature-based.
Lovely, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've got my 3 sort of set questions I've been using for these series, but before I even get to that, can you tell us more what actually that is? What does that mean, being a priestess of the goddess, and what was the training like, and just a little bit more of an insight?
Yeah, well, the training was intense. It meant going down to Glastonbury for a weekend every 6 weeks or so. And yeah, so it's a 3-year course if you wish to do all 3 years. And we do follow the wheel of the year. We follow what's happening in nature within our own hemisphere, and the aspects and facets of the divine feminine reflected in that.
Fantastic. Oh God, there's so many questions I want to ask you about that. But let me sort of go to my first sort of question of the series I've been asking everyone, and maybe that will lead me to finding out why you became a high priestess. So the first question is, what is your earliest memory of connecting to nature in some way?
My earliest memory was I actually spent a lot of time in Great Ormond Street as a child, because I have a heart condition and I was very poorly, and my mum would take me to a nearby park. I think it was Queen's Park, does that sound right? Anyway, near to the hospital. And I remember seeing, I used to love seeing this plant called, I think we call it old-fashioned honesty. I think in America it's known as silver dollars. So it's like the flat silver seed pods. Do you know the ones I mean? They look like coins.
I don't know if I can't picture it at the moment. I'm going to have to go and look afterwards.
Yeah, I think we just call it honesty, but it's a lovely looking plant. I used to be really excited, like leaning out the wheelchair to kind of touch this plant, and it was lovely to go to the park and just be in nature compared to the very clean conditions of a hospital, because it's so sensory. You've got the smells and the sights and the birds, and it's just, there's so much stimuli. It's amazing.
So even as a young child, there's something that you were just getting from that, and
perhaps without even knowing what that was, I guess.
Yeah.
It's interesting because there's been a lot of research, and you may be aware of that now, especially when people are in hospital, or dealing with recovery from an illness or surgery, that definitely going to nature or a view of nature, especially getting to touch and smell, can really help either speed up recovery or at least kind of perhaps help relax us that little bit to cope with whatever we're coping with. I wondered, is that, would you agree?
Absolutely. And I think, and you probably know this, it's the same for palliative and end of life care. If someone's unable to go outside, you can bring things in that are maybe smells and different stimuli for them that they might be missing from being stuck inside, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely something I experienced. I mean, I've not sort of elaborated too much on these chats about my own journey, although I think at some point I've probably got to answer the questions myself at the end of this too. But some time that I'd spent in hospital, having that view of nature made that great difference for me. So if that was your sort of your earliest memory of and connection to nature, I'm wondering then, what has nature become for you, and what does nature mean to you now, really?
Well, my mum was always very passionate about nature, bless her. So whenever we were out in the car or going for walks, because we're very lucky to live near Epping Forest, and she would be saying, "Look at that, look at this," and naming the trees, and "Look at the colours, and aren't you lucky?" And we used to be, you know, as kids, it was like, "Oh, well," you know, but it does go in, you know, it goes in, and now we do that. Me and my sisters will do that to people and go, "Look at this, look at that," and get very excited. So yeah, I think as a family we're very connected to the forest, and we love the forest. We love seeing the deer, and we're very fortunate to live where we live. Yeah, that it means a lot.
And how has that changed, or has it changed this year? Have you noticed any difference in that connection? Because we're obviously quite a different year for everyone.
Yeah, like a lot of people, I was able to spend time in my garden, and we had that lovely weather, didn't we? So I spent a lot of time in my garden because I had to be shielding, so I couldn't do an awful lot. So I was very lucky to be able to sit outside and have my coffee there in the mornings and hear the birds. And it's been really important. And I think we all saw people that wouldn't normally maybe be going out for walks or exercising, just taking advantage, having the time, looking around, and it's been really nice.
Yes. And how about the work that you do then with, I imagine there's a whole range of ceremonies and different parts of people's lives, momentous parts of people's lives, both joyous and difficult, that you're guiding. What role, if any, does nature play in that, do you think? I mean, I imagine some ceremonies are inside, but equally some are outside. So I wonder if you could tell us more about that and your thoughts on that.
A lot of people would like it outside if possible. I mean, it's weather dependent a lot of the time. And I would say if it's windy or if it's raining, you know, people can't hear me with the best will in the world. It's very, very hard to project a group of people when it's pouring down. It's just not going to happen. But I mean, there are some lovely venues where you can still have a nice view of nature, of the forest, of whatever, and you can also bring aspects of that into the ceremony. Like some people, for example, they don't want to throw earth onto the coffin at a burial because it's quite harsh. But we could throw rosemary for remembrance, sprigs of rosemary, or we could throw rose petals, or, you know, there's different choices there. And some people like to give out seed packets after the services. There's lots you can do. And I mean, as you know, even now, there's always flowers at ceremonies, there's always flowers. And brides have bouquets, and it's just really important. I think really important to bring that in, you know, into
definitely
ceremonies.
It seems so much of our ceremonies, traditional or of different faiths or even non-religious ceremonies, there seems to be a real element of nature involved, as you said, and I've not really thought about it as much as this, but there is almost always flowers connected in some way. And is that, I mean, I think of, obviously there's the different religions of faith, and then equally perhaps even looking about more ancient humans, and how we were connected to land, and what we would do. I wonder then, going back to the being a priestess and the training that, I guess because I don't know that much about that still, what part nature has a role in that? Because that sounds like that's very tied to nature.
It is. Yeah, well, it goes back to the fact that I think a lot of things are tied to food and celebrations, and everything is about eating together, because that's what sustains us. But if you follow the wheel of the year, it's basically farming. You know, it's seeing what's happening in nature at different seasons and reflecting that as much as you can in your life. So at spring, you're planting the seeds of the wishes and hopes you would like for the months to come. Then you're nurturing those, and then hopefully around autumn you're seeing them come to fruition. And at that point, you let go of what's no longer serving you, and you take what you've invested in and what's produced for you. And then you rest. I think we're coming up to winter now, where we need to rest and go back to the root, back to the earth. We're all watching our box sets and getting our pajamas on, and we need that, you know.
Yeah, we so often forget that, don't we? We don't always give ourselves permission to do that, and to take that rest. But going back to the land, going back to being connected to the land, and you know, even if you take out any sort of mystical, spiritual connection, and as you said, that food, that very practical connection, we would still be resting over winter, I guess.
Yes, there will be a lot of farming to do in the dark and cold, so you would spend time telling stories around the fire with your family, you know. Yeah, I think, and people do, there's something about Firelight that makes people talk about inner things and share memories and look back and reflect, and I think it's very interesting.
How then, after doing your 3 years of studying to be that intense study to become that priestess of the goddess, how do you then use that now? How does that translate into your everyday life? And how has that transformed your everyday life or connection?
The biggest thing, well, one of the biggest things, was the sense of sisterhood and brotherhood and connection you got from everyone during the training. That was amazing, and I'd not had that before. I'd not had a group of people on my side like that before, a big group, and it's really something. If you've never experienced it, it's amazing. And it's about, I don't know, because we each make our own personal dedication to the goddess when we dedicate, so it depends, I think, what you say. But for me, it's about trying to see everyone through the loving eyes of the goddess. And yes, and I had some personal things to work on, which was also about trying to protect the environment more, and being more gentle on the planet, and just things like that. So, yeah, so it has made a difference in my daily life.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be something that keeps coming up in my chats as we connect more to nature, than the need to protect it and see, you know, what we need to do to help, or what little things that we can do as well. So with kind of all of that in mind, my third question is normally, what would your advice be to other people? And I guess that's kind of in relation to their connecting with nature, and particularly perhaps during lockdown and winter, and perhaps in particular, I know that you said that you have been shielding as well, so whether there's any specific advice you might even give people that are facing that sort of scenario again, and what you would perhaps advise them that they could do, or suggest that they can do.
My advice would be to eat what's available naturally as much as possible, because I think that's kind of good for you, and it's also good environmentally, because then you're buying a bit more local, and try and buy with less packaging if you can, things like that. But I think what's nice is, as people have started to walk more in their area, it's different. When you're whizzing past in a car or a train or a bus, you're not quite as noticing, you're not quite as connected to what's going on. I think when you're walking, you appreciate what's around you, and I'm hoping people will like litter less, and they'll, you know, pick up their dog mess and things like that, because they'll just be more aware of their own neighbourhoods and their community. And I really hope so. And yeah, and their neighbours, and yeah, and I would say just to protect your mental health as well, if you are shielding, because it's difficult. Because normally the things I have in place to help me would be meeting friends, going for meals, going to the cinema, going for a coffee. I can't do those things at the moment, so I need to do other things. But I remember one year I was very poorly with pneumonia, and my grandma bought me a pansy, a live pansy in a pot. And I just remember laying in bed staring at it and enjoying giving it little water, and it makes such a difference. So even if you just get a plant to take care of, I think it's really good for you to be responsible for another living thing, and it's just very rewarding. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that entirely big. And we talk about in forest bathing, what I do, that sort of that reciprocal relationship, and kind of almost we start to ponder what nature is giving to us and supporting us, but then by doing that, starting to sort of grow our own love and compassion back for nature, and that sort of that two-way thing. And I guess the act of having a plant, a house plant, or in your garden, or growing vegetables, you said that's something about nurturing and looking after, and even at a time of illness, if you're able to, obviously depending on what you can and can't do, just having perhaps that little pansy by you perhaps can kind of send that love both ways and encourage self-compassion as well, maybe.
Yeah, and it's very calming, and there's some plants that purify the air and they're good for you, and
yeah, definitely.
Really good. There's so many benefits.
Okay, so taking care of yourself and getting yourself a little plant.
That's important.
So I did find myself, I mean, I know, well, you know, obviously I'm guiding people to connect with nature, but I recently, some of the other work that I've been doing has had me tied to the laptop pretty much most of the day, and I'm still just trying to get that balance right. So I knew that I needed to bring some of the forest inside, so I suddenly got all my sort of like my smelly oils, and I've got myself a little tree and another little plant. So I guess just doing exactly what you were saying.
Yeah, that's really nice. It's really nice. Yeah. And it's very sensory, isn't it? I mean, even like smell and feel of a tomato, you know, or just anything. It's very, it's very grounding compared to, as you say, staring at a computer screen. It just brings you back to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're not getting that as much social contact, if you're shielding, then suddenly being able to have those other living beings that you're still having contact with, and having some sort of exchange or relationship with, can become quite important, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
So just tell us what perhaps, if you've ever done any, I think, because I know you do like hand fasting ceremonies and things like that. So I'm assuming that often that is in a more outdoor setting, and wondering what would a typical ceremony like that perhaps look like?
Ooh. Well, I like to think they're all bespoke.
So not typical.
Not too typical. But yeah, if you're having a hand fasting, it is the binding of the hands, and it's fasting as in fast friends stuck fast rather than speed. So it's about but it's a very ancient tradition that goes way back before marriage was recorded or official. It was a way of declaring your intentions to be together. So it's quite nice to incorporate that, because it's an action, it's a symbol, and then you have the hand fasting called to keep, and you can get some beautiful ones, plaited ones with personal things in. It's really nice. And there's lots of other things you can do too. So rather than it being just a static ceremony where your guests maybe aren't involved, we can bring them in many ways, you know, so there can be a sand blending, or there can be a unity candle, or you can have your rings blessed by all the guests, and you could have them put their hands on the hand fasting knot, and there's lots of things you can do, lots of ways to make it different and meaningful.
And I keep asking lots of questions I haven't told you I would ask you. I hope that's okay. But also then, I guess all of that has probably changed an awful lot this year. I wonder, I mean, I've heard, I don't know if that was in this country, I've heard of people doing ceremonies online or on Zoom or things like that. But yeah, how have you been able to do ceremonies, and how has that been?
And a lot of ceremonies have been pushed back, obviously, to next year or the year after. But some people have had a sort of what would have been on their wedding day or what would have been on the date. They liked to have a little Zoom ceremony, because with Zoom you can have as many guests as you want. You don't have to wear face masks. You know, it's a bit more relaxed, and it's down to the couple more than me this time. But we've had couples who then plant seeds and water them during the ceremony, like on camera, to say, you know, we're going to watch things blossom and come up, and we're going to hope that you're going to be with us when we're ready to celebrate and it's come to fruition. And yeah, there's lots of ways you can still make it special and have something to keep and look forward to.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much. Before we sort of wrap up the conversation, I just wanted to ask if there's anything else that you wanted to say, and also just let people know how they can follow you, find out what you do, if anyone's watching and wants to get in touch with you, and just plug what you do if you'd like to.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward to find me. It's Rachel Bass Celebrant on Facebook, or it's my website is celebrantessex.co.uk. Yeah, but I know I said about my own religion, but it's not about me. So professionally speaking, I will do any religion or spirituality or none, or I can weave two together. It's whatever the clients want. It's not about what I do.
And this can be all types of ceremonies as well, from
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel. Well, thank you. Yeah, anyone watching, get in touch with Rachel. And again, Rachel, thank you so much for your time. It's so lovely to get so many different voices and people coming from so many different experiences and line of work as well. So really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. I'm just going to hang around here just for a couple more minutes, just to let you guys know. So if you weren't around at the beginning, the rest of this week, I've got a few more guests. I've got a couple of nights off though, unless I suddenly book them up. But I have got my friend and study mate tomorrow night, Shika, from Learnomic, who teaches mindfulness to children and to businesses over in Nigeria. We studied together back in June, July, so it'd be nice to see her again. I've got a naturalist, conservationist, a bushcraft instructor, a forest bathing guide, so looking forward to sharing forest bathing stories, and also the digital detox coach. But if you are watching and you would like to share your responses to the questions, do get in touch. If you'd like to do a live chat with me, or you know anyone else that would, please send them my way. I am loving just getting so many different voices, so many different viewpoints, you know, because there's no wrong or right with any of these questions, and everyone has a connection to nature in some shape or form or another, whether we realize it or not. Well, we are nature, so that's our connection. So yeah, do get in touch. Originally the idea was this project was for the length of lockdown, or for the length of November at least, and it's now looking like it might carry on a little bit longer, and that's fine by me. So thank you everyone for watching. Thanks for the lovely comments, and I will see you again tomorrow night at the same time.